and welcome to this session, Process Mapping. Today we would like to explain what process mapping is and its importance in a process improvement project, and we want to be able to create a process map using conventional symbols. Now we've discussed SIPOC, Supplier, Input, Process, Output, and Customer. We've discussed that this is a high-level schematic of the overall process from the suppliers and of the inputs to the process to the customers of the output. It allows discussion, it allows consensus, and is a starting point for mapping out the scope of many process improvement projects. But now we're going to focus on the P in the SIPOC, the process. And we're going to learn about how we can map our process. But what is process mapping? Every product or service is created or produced by a process. Whether it is making a cup of tea, designing a product, preparing an invoice, approving a loan, answering a customer complaint, these activities can be mapped as a process involving a sequence of steps and a sequence of resources. Process mapping then can be defined as identifying all the steps in a process, the inputs and outputs, the controls at each step, the resources used in each step, the responsibilities for each step, and then mapping these steps as they occur. And why do we use process mapping? Well, first of all, because problems are always the result of a process. So we need to understand the process. And also, when processes are mapped using charts on paper, they can be better understood, better analyzed, improved, and managed. Understanding the process fully in order to be able to control and improve it is the key precept leading to the success of quality improvement programs and for the Six Sigma methodology. And also, as a team visual tool, the process map can help share knowledge and build consensus among the team members. A process flow chart is a schematic representation of the operations or activities, starting from raw material and leading to the production of the final product. The process flow chart is an important planning document used by, for example, manufacturing engineers when they're selecting appropriate machinery, appropriate methods, and appropriate measurement tools. It provides a perspective on the flow of activities in a production process and thus facilitates also planning for quality-related activities at appropriate junctures in the course of production. And of course, it is the basis for starting discussions in the Six Sigma methodology, for investigating the influencing factors for the critical to quality characteristics. And here we just have, in the rest of the lecture, a few examples. So, in making a cup of tea for Mom, who is English, you first of all need to boil the water. You need to put 2 tea bags into the teapot. She likes strong tea. Fill the teapot with the boiling water and let steep for a few minutes. Then, importantly, you need to pour the milk into the cup. And this is because you don't want the milk to scald. When you put it into the tea water, you put the milk in first, then you put the tea into the cup, and then you decide if you want some sugar. If you do, then you follow your flow chart over here, and you say yes, you add some sugar, you stir and drink your tea. If not, you can go ahead and drink your tea. It's a pretty easy flow chart, and what we're using there are some conventional symbols. So you may see this differently, but typically, you see an ellipse for the start and the end of the process. Then you use either rectangles or circles for different process steps, and a diamond will indicate a decision point, so sugar or no sugar. If there's transportation, that is often represented by a big arrow, and a triangle or sometimes an inverted triangle is used to indicate storage. A square can be used then also for an inspection step, and a large D is often used for a delay. There's also many software packages you can find online. One that I like is the Jiffy.com. So you can find different resources to help you draw your process charts, but the best way to do it for a project, of course, is just to start on paper and start writing down the process as you go. Here we have an example from our textbook of making a mold in a foundry. So you can look at this then a little more carefully. But if we go through this one by one, you have here, so the legend says here, V is visual inspection, M is measurement, C is control chart, and K is a key process variable. So what we have in is the incoming ingredients, a catalyst, sand, and resin, making this foundry mold. And then each of these are held in storage. So you see that with the upside down arrow. And then in this chart, you have circles to represent the different steps. And you can see that first the sand is heated, and then the sand, the catalyst, and the resin are all then mixed together. Then the mold is made, and you have a checkpoint here, a small square, where you're checking the mold. Then you have a step rollover, clean, spray, and in parallel, you have another process with the incoming spray. Those get combined in spray, and the final is burn off for that last step. Again, this is in our textbook. Here we have an example of a swim lane flow chart. And this is one way of doing a flow chart where you can see the different responsible parties. And what you're doing with this type of flow chart is reflecting the organizational boundaries. So in each lane, the processes which have responsibility for that part of the organization are identified. And the description to these workflows to reflect inputs and outputs can also be added. So here we have a simple one about how the retailer orders are received at the company headquarters, and the information is then transferred to the factories for capacity reservation. So at the retailer, on the top of the top swim lane, you send the customer PO, the purchase order, over to the company headquarters. The company headquarters then is responsible for receiving that order. They have to enter it into their systems. Maybe somebody will type it in. Maybe it comes electronically. They then reserve inventory and commit the delivery back to the retailer. They then schedule the product deliveries, and this generates then a company purchase order within the company to the factory. And here again, the factory then has to receive the order from the headquarters, reserve capacity, and on with the flow, produce the parts, and make sure they get shipped out. So, for example, you can use a slightly different type of flowchart, the swim lane flowchart. Next, we have an example from one of my students, and nobody's expected to read this. This is just to give you an example at a very high, at a much more complicated process, how flowcharts can be used then with more detailed descriptions at each point. So you have these detailed descriptions describing what's going on. Here they've not used the same convention, but you still clearly see the flow of the process as it moves through the process. Who should be involved then in your process mapping exercise as part of your project? Process mapping should involve all the stakeholders in the process. Now, this is very important. Who are all the stakeholders in a process? These will be the people involved in the daily process execution. These people are critical to the process mapping. And what is the goal of the process? Is to develop a common, holistic understanding of the process steps, and how they work. Creating a tool for quality improvement. Once the process is mapped, it can be better understood, analyzed, improved, and managed. And here we have to remember our discussion in the first session. What is quality? What does the customer expect, and what customer needs have we decided to fulfill with our product, given our target market and costs? The process map then provides a clear starting point to start discussion to identify where and how the process then can be improved to meet those expectations. If we look at process mapping in practice, we would suggest that it's initially done on paper, on flip charts or whiteboards. Process mapping involves choosing the scope of the project, defining process boundaries, and the level of detail, and even the level of formality of the process map. And one way of doing it is to start with the boundaries and then build inwards. And another practical point is to just get started. Don't wait for perfect accuracy from the beginning. Leave extra space in your diagram for additions, revisions, and more detail. The process needs to be walked, and inputs from the process owners and those using the process need to be considered. And of course, when it's on paper, you can then change it. You can then make changes before it actually gets saved electronically. And watch out for what's known as the hidden factory. Inspection points, measurement points, rework loops, scrapping procedures, these are all things that are normally not considered when you're thinking about the process of making a product or a service. These are parts of the process that are often hidden and take additional time and additional resources, and these should be included. And you also want to map the information flow as well as the material flow. And in many cases, it's even recommended to map the financial flow so that when you complete your process map, you have a clear mapping of all the critical steps, the hidden steps, and all the different flows in order to create your process or service, product or service.